Elon Musk is making waves again, this time in a call to slow AI research for 6 months based on claims of artificial general intelligence and OpenAI's GPT-4 and ChatGPT. Is this a good idea? What do they hope to accomplish? What are the risks and pitfalls of following the advice? I asked Dr. Muddu Sudhakar, a computer scientist and AI innovator, and Aisera CEO, for his thoughts on the controversial Musk letter.
Synthedia.
All right, folks, I'm Bret Kinsella. I am the founder of Voicebot.ai and Synthedia, if you're reading that newsletter about all things generative AI and synthetic media. And today we're going to talk about one of the biggest stories that's come along in a while. And this is the great pause of AI because of all the risks it supposedly is causing us. And today to talk about this, I have Muddu Sudhakar, the founder of Aisera, a tech industry giant in his own right and a user of generative AI. Thanks for joining me, Muddu.
Bret, always pleasure to speak with you. And it's a great time to be speaking with you about the topic of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have this letter from the Future of Life Institute, pause giant AI experiments, an open letter, and then they have people signing up. There apparently are 5,900 people who they verified the signatures, but they claim 50,000 signatures. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's because everyone else calls this the Musk letter. So the Musk pause letter, the OpenAI competitive letter, or something like that. But it's usually associated with Elon Musk. He's obviously a high-profile individual, and he was one of the first signers of this. Muddu, what was your initial reaction to the letter?
Look, my reaction is I'm in the AI field. We've been doing it at Aisera for the last, 5 years? And before that, I was there when I was at ServiceNow and Splunk. So the AI is an evolution, right? It's a journey. I think, first of all, we should be celebrating the ChatGPT and generative AI. To me, it made AI really exciting and wonderful thing, right? It's going to define and change the societies and world altogether. So to me, my reaction is we should be celebrating and educating it and try to leverage it for the humankind and society in a positive way. And I'm not opposed to regulation. There should be regulation. And that's the job of not tech people. That should be the job of leaders we have elected in the federal government, Congress, Senate, and the federal government and president. They should do their job, and local state governments, right? And not just US, the whole world should do it.
Yes.
So that's my initial reaction.
Your initial reaction, though, I think is this is not a good idea to pause AI research for 6 months.
Look, I'm a PhD in computer science. I take a vote saying that I'm here to advance AI for the positives of mankind. Like when you're a doctor, you do to protect your patients and health. My job is to protect the technology and its advancement, right? From that perspective, I don't think AI should be paused. Even if you pause, do you think China is going to pause? Do you think other countries are going to pause? I think we should not pause, but at the same time, if you feel that there are threats to the society and there are threats to whatever in whatever shape and form, I think we should do. The Congress and Senate should go to overdrive. They can work on weekends, weekdays to put the rightful regulation and at all levels. But that should be what we should do. AI is here to stay. We should be looking at how it's going to change citizens' lives. It should see how it's going to change our technology industry, how it can create new jobs, right? We should be using this. This is what it's made in. Generative AI and OpenAI is made in America. We should be celebrating this. We should be leading this. Like we talk about creating jobs and leading this innovation.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and I'll hold back on my commentary for a few moments because I've got some specific ideas on this as well. And I think if Congress is going to go into overdrive, it's because there's some sense of actual risk, and we'll see if that's the truth. But maybe we should just step back and let's talk about what's actually in the letter. So we have the pause giant AI experiments, an open letter. This is from our friends at the Future of Life Institute. And, you know, there's something like really specific in here that they talk about. Contemporary AI systems are now becoming human competitive at general tasks. And we must ask ourselves, should we let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth? Should we automate away all the jobs, including the fulfilling ones? Should we develop non-human minds that might eventually outnumber, outsmart, obsolete, and replace us? Should we risk loss of control of our civilization? So this is the type of language that's being used here. And I just want to think about this because this is a central premise. Contemporary AI systems are now becoming human competitive at general tasks. Since when has technology not been or started to become competitive with human tasks? I mean, we think about the move from agricultural to industrial. There was a lot of automation that's taken place throughout the years, and automation is like a big part of your career, maybe almost all of it, if you
Right.
think about it. And this idea, let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruths. This sounds very much like the concerns about the printing press. Sounds very much like the concerns about the World Wide Web. Oh, the citadels of control of media can't keep you from publishing. Now we don't want to do this. Should we automate away all the jobs? Well, we've been automating away jobs. That's what technology does. Sometimes it enhances, does new things, but very often it automates. Should we develop basically competitors to humans? And I think a lot of this is they don't even realize that they're saying the exact same things that were said in the time of Galileo and the times of ancient Rome. Every time a new technology comes along, they overestimate the impact it's going to have, both in the long and the short term, because there's always this deep-seated sense in humans around fear of the unknown and fear of what might happen, and they overemphasize the potential of the worst case scenario.
I think, Brett, you summarize it really well. Look, I'm like 100% agreement with you. Like going back to Galileo, or whether it's industrial revolution, printing, whether it's agricultural revolution. In our own lifetime, we saw internet revolution when World Wide Web came in 93, 94. We saw iPhone came. We didn't ban iPhones. We didn't ban cloud when AWS invented in 2006 and 2007, right? So I don't think these things are to be taken in that regard. Definitely not in that approach, right? So I think, look, is it overblown? Absolutely overblown. AI is starting a journey. It should automate what you call the common task. At Aisera, that's what we do. We automate IT help desk, we automate IT operations, we automate customer service and support. But these tasks, humans should not be doing it, right? This is an area where even if you put that humans will not be in the job for more than 6 months or 1 year, and they're getting below federal wage anyway in any country. So let's be very clear. The jobs you're trying to automate is we're creating the better quality of life. Use AI to improve those. If you walk into call centers, contact centers worldwide, people who are doing these mundane jobs are people who are worried about. Many of these people not even visited those offices. They have not even met with those people.
That's
They have
right.
not even seen what those people do. So all these guys are the people who talk about it high level, and these are the naysayers, and they also want a competitive advantage to themselves. So everybody who signed it in the letter, they're not looking at the security and the social risk. They wanted to pause so that they can catch up with OpenAI and Microsoft. I think, yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of that in there, but I think it's really interesting too. We have this laundry list of all these potential risks.
Right.
And what that does is that, like, there's a large group of people who will identify with one of those. Maybe they don't believe all four of them or
Sure.
5 of them, but we have the what we would call the singularity alarmists, who are worried about superintelligence and Skynet and taking over the world. Should we risk loss of control of our civilization? Like, that's the last one. Like, you're sort of building to this crescendo. But there are people who are worried about jobs. There are people who are worried about misinformation, all these other types of things. Sure. But we have this other thing too, where I thought it was really interesting. If you look at Gary Marcus, who's one of the signers of this, a very famous person in the industry,
Okay.
he says, although a lot of the literature equates artificial intelligence risk with the risk of superintelligence or artificial general intelligence, you don't have to be super intelligent to create serious problems. I'm not worried immediately about AGI. A lot of the people who signed that letter were immediately concerned about AGI. There's a few people like Gary who picked other items from that laundry list. The risk of super intelligent machines beyond our control. In the near term, I'm worried about what I will call MAI risk, mediocre AI that's unreliable, a la Bing and GPT-4, but widely deployed. So, I think what they've done is they've created this big ballyhoo about, the risks of AI, and they've crafted it in such a way that they can get a lot of headlines. They can attach famous people like Elon Musk and Yoshua Bengio to it. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, this must be a problem. Everyone's talking about it. I should pay attention. And I've got to catch up. Maybe 6 months would help me catch up too.
No, I think that you nailed it. So look, we at one point we said Chat GPT and generative AI is still hallucinating. Of course, there will be hallucination. It's already making mistakes. So we are nowhere close to the utopian world where it will take over. Is there a risk? Absolutely. For every technology, there's a risk. There was a risk when internet came. There's a risk when social media came. There's a risk in Facebook. We saw that. There's a risk with YouTube. So I think there's always going to be both sides of a technology. When you invent something, some people use it for positive, some people use it for negative. So there is a regulation needed. We need to make sure that the lawmakers will put proper regulations. But should they stop? You should not stop the innovation.
I'm actually not even convinced there should be regulation. I think it's too early to regulate because we don't know what the problems are. If we haven't identified harms, and it's all potential harms, like, what are we talking about?
I completely agree. I think regulation is when the industry starts maturing. You don't want to put a regulation when you're in infancy. You're absolutely right. I think we need to have its advances to go, get a real application. There's not even a single AI company that's gone public yet. Like, tell me one company which has gone public yet. Why are you talking about it, right? There are so many car companies, autonomous car companies, right? At one point, you're talking about cars should be autonomous and it's good for this.
Isn't Tesla an AI company? Maybe Tesla maybe Tesla should stop development. Maybe really what we should be worried about is self-driving tanks that can go and blow up neighborhoods, and it's the technology from Tesla that's going to enable this.
Yeah, I think, look, you bring up one of the key points, right? The key is let's invest in technology. I'm a technologist. I can't talk about regulation. I'm not even qualified. My job is to innovate technology, follow the law of the land, right? Let the lawmakers and society determine that at local, state, federal, whatever at level. But to your key point is, give the technology chances for it to form, for it to be born. If you start killing it at its birth, you'll never have American innovation. Right? All the technology that you saw, from whether cars to aircraft, I call this one actually Sputnik moment. Like, you didn't say stop going to moon when the race was there. We didn't give up. You can't give up now. Even if you give up, do you think other states will give up, other countries? I mean,
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And if we think about this, we might even suggest that we need the equivalent of Section 230 for AI. So Section 230 enabled the internet to, flourish, at least in the U.S., and then a lot of countries around the world adopted similar patterns because they thought it was a competitive race and it was really very important. Are there downsides to it? Maybe should Section 230 be amended or repealed today?
I think, Bret, you're onto something. I remember the early 90s. I was just at UCLA coming out. That Section 230 is what propelled internet to be the whole e-commerce industry. It was a bipartisan support. I think we as a country need to unify and put wood behind AI to help America and US, right? And the whole world.
And Europe, and like everywhere. I mean, like, everybody's benefiting from ChatGPT. I can tell you that right now. I've seen the numbers.
Absolutely. And I like the idea of like using the 230 extension to AI to help form the new entrepreneurs, new businesses. Some of the applicants may not have been born yet. I would say this is the beginning of the next 10, 20 years. Like, it took 10, 15 years for cloud. It took 10, 15 years for iPhone. Internet, it took 20 years. So I think we're beginning of a 10, 20-year journey. So we are early days. I think all this talk it's just creating you more polarized discussion. But I think we are still early there because I'm selling solutions. I know where our AI technology is there. Sometimes we request our answer, sometimes we don't answer it. But it's in the perspective but good news is AI in 5 years, right? We are already seeing 60, 70% of requests, or almost 80%, we can handle it. And when I say handle it, it's not just answering your request. I need to take an action.
Right.
That's where the generative AI comes in. There's still the source code. So in terms of the jobs we create, I myself create hundreds of jobs. I'm just one company, right? Every company, there are 1,000 companies, millions of jobs will be created. There will be data scientists, software programmer, AI workflow people. I call it prompt engineering people, AI ethics people. There will be AI ethics in law and legal and paralegal, right? So I think society should open up to a much wider positive thinking on this.
Yeah, I think some sort of regulatory umbrella that actually protects people who are developing AI solutions. And maybe the trade-off is that there are some checks and balances built into a system or something like that. Right. But the thing about Section 230 was it was very prescient and unusual from a regulatory standpoint, where regulators, legislators step back and said, you know what, we don't understand enough today about how this is going to be used, how it could be benefit, what the risks are. What we need to do is we need to create a method for us to create some protection, let it grow, and then monitor it.
That's right.
And did they monitor it well enough? Like, I think there's arguments on both sides of that, but it's really, really important. And I think we should talk about is if this thing went into effect. So if there was a pause, so what does that mean, a pause, and what would be ensnared in it? So first of all, they don't tell you like what that would mean. So we don't know who would be ensnared in this, but it will always be there will always be people who are ensnared or solutions that will be ensnared in these types of things that you don't think should be. Because when you have a hammer and you're trying to pound a screw, bad things happen, right? And so okay, so something better than OpenAI. So I think it's really interesting. I see both things coming up. Some people are saying, "Hey, this is just people trying to catch up with OpenAI. They just want OpenAI not to be able to do more." And like GPT-5, like it's GPT-5 is well down the road. They're going to be testing it this summer, and that's even bigger. It's a 2 trillion parameter model, whatever. And then there's other people who are saying, you know what, this might actually just lock OpenAI in because no one else will be able to catch up. I'm not sure like which one of those things would happen, but I think one of those things would happen, and probably both in some regards.
Right. One thing that can happen right now is, from my perspective, following things. So look, if you look at it, OpenAI and Microsoft, right? They have an early lead. But look at what Google did. It's actually going to get a good competition. Google, Amazon,
Yes.
all these are going to compete. Like when cloud came, other guys did not give up. Everybody came now. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, it's a three-horse race, right? Same thing is going to happen here also. I think my belief is OpenAI and Microsoft has the lead today. Google is came with Bret, so other companies will come. It's good. Competition is good. It's a free economy, free markets. That's when the innovation will happen. So we need pausing is neither good for OpenAI and Microsoft, and as well as to the rest of the society. I don't think we should pause.
Well, and
We
we've got
should put it to
Nvidia
good
as
use.
well. I mean, we have another big player coming in who's going to have a huge impact in this space. Plus, we have a lot of startups. So this is actually a dynamic system. Now, if your concern is control, you want to control it, you don't want people to do things you think might be harmful, then this is even more of a problem because it's not just OpenAI. You've got all these other people who are coming along, and they all have these incentives to keep pushing the envelope. But I'm not even sure you can, because I'm not sure you could define something that would actually meet your objective. Certainly not in 6 months. And there's no such thing as a 6-month pause for something like this. They'll spend 3 months just getting organized, 3 months trying to figure out what the definitions are, and then they'll ask for another 6 months.
That's right. And also, if you look at it, look, for me, the Siri came through a startup that Apple acquired, right? Uber came. So I think the new innovative models that can be leveraged, generative and ChatGPT, is nobody knows. You and me, Brett, are thinking of some application. There'll be another entrepreneur who is probably in college or a middle school. He or she is going to come up with a next big company out there, right? Pausing is not good. I think right now the great thing is I see this applied by, I mean, people, high school or middle schoolers are using it. I think we need to believe in our people. ChatGPT should be helping the society. It's for the people, by the people, good
Yes.
for the people, right? I mean, that's what
Well,
I heard in the Constitution last time.
it's a democratization of people love that term, right? In the tech industry, democratization, it's a democratization of the access to AI to the individual. Like today, up to this point, AI has always been controlled by the company. It's like a little feature in a product that you as a consumer can't get access to, or it's some big system that like you never see because a university or a company uses it. But ChatGPT and some of these other tools, AI writing assistants, Midjourney, I mean, this is like putting the power that only in the past an enterprise would have in the hands of real people.
That's right. And also, I'll give you an example of where I come from. Like, I'm looking at ChatGPT as a digital assistant, voice assistant, personal assistant, right? The ultimate goal, maybe through this, we can probably create the whole vision of a ultimate personal assistant for Brett to you as a citizen. Hey, it will wake up and tell you what to do, which podcast should show, who should you contact, call, tell your producer, read your mind, and say what you should like. Look, there's so much you can get creativity, innovation on your thinking. If I can automate your mundane task, it elevates you. It'll get the best out of Brett.
Right. Just like what you talk about, what Aisera does. Like, so you automate these mundane IT help desk tasks. It's just one example. Well, I've got all sorts of mundane tasks that I have to deal with every day, and I despise them, but like sometimes you just have to do them. And so it is very interesting. I just talked to somebody yesterday who's going to be in the podcast coming up shortly about this idea of an assistant that's driven by these large language models and other types of generative AI. And it is ultimately the path that's most likely to fulfill the promise of what we heard Siri was going to do back in 2011, 12 years ago. So, because those models, basically all those NLU-based models, hit a wall. They got, and they're really good at command and control and a few other types of things, but they haven't been able to reach the spec that Jeff Bezos laid out for the Alexa Prize. But ChatGPT did it on November 30th. It could meet the spec for the Alexa Prize because it took an assistant to a different level of capability. And so, yeah, there's so many different models that this can move out. And I think right now we're using it like a screwdriver, a shovel, something like that. We're saying, oh, I have to write an email, or I have to write an invitation, or a job description, or a social media post. And it's like putting something out, or I need an image. I don't want to go to stock photo site. I want something unique, or my vision. So you go to Midjourney or DALL-E. But what you're talking about is where it's headed, these assistants. And guess what? Today, every company has to have assistants. Right? Because they're the only ones with the capability to put something out that's actually personalized and can get jobs done. But in the future, I think we'll all have assistants, and maybe those assistants will just talk to these companies, maybe their assistants, maybe just their back-end systems. And then the companies won't really have to focus on the assistants. They'll just be able to focus on providing the services back to my assistant that's going out and trying to do things for me in the world.
And I was reading an article. Google CEO apparently for his dad's 80th birthday went to Google Bird to ask for what to do. I mean, that's an example. He's the CEO of Google. He himself is using a ChatGPT generative AI to plan for his dad's 80th birthday.
I mean, isn't that a made-for-press release activity by Sundown?
Exactly. Right. I mean, look, I think you nailed it. The use cases are still, people have not thought of. We will think through it. And it'll be particularly the LLMs that you talked about. ChatGPT is one, right? Other thing is this whole verticalized, domain-specific, micro, personalized, hyper-specific LLMs. To me, there are two big innovations going on, right? And through LLMs, you're going to make it very highly, because you're not going to have a large LLMs. That can only be Microsoft and OpenAI can afford it. But in industry, when I come to your enterprise, I want a verticalized domain-specific. That's where Aisera does really well. We will give you verticalized domain-specific IT, HR, sales, marketing, highly specific LLMs that meets your needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that should be domain-specific and the company-specific.
And that's right. And we think about the big models trained on a lot of tokens, also with a lot of parameters. And then you look at what Bloomberg just came out with, Bloomberg GPT, domain specific around financial information. That's a $50 billion or 50 billion parameter model. So it's smaller, but still really significant. I'm seeing things at the 6 billion parameter level, which are domain specific. And what this comes down to for the individual. So we've got the Bloomberg, which is smaller than the everything. We have the IT help desk, which is smaller than the Bloomberg. And then we have the personal one, which might actually be a hybrid. So it's mostly a small model, a few billion parameters. You run it on an iPhone, but then it has access to other services. And those other services are larger models, 25, 50 billion.
I have a name for the person. I call it Citizen GPT. So if I'm federal government, instead of banning it, you should create a department whose job is to create a Citizen GPTs, which is like a co-pilot. Yes. I want a co-pilot for Bret, co-pilot for Muddu, which will tell me what my day should be, plan my day out, right? So I think using the taxpayers' money, if I'm federal government, we should create a division and say, give back to all the 350 million. There should be 350 million co-pilots out there.
I love that idea. I think that would be really helpful to a lot of people, and it would actually level the playing field, because we don't all have access to the same information. We don't have all the same background, but if we can tap into the knowledge of the world much more than Google ever thought of, right? Because the generative AI models package the knowledge in the world in a way that's actionable, as opposed to you can do more research here. If we could do that, it would actually help everybody. And in fact, it would give more help to people that are not like you and I. We're very tech savvy.
That's right.
We've had leadership roles. We've worked with people who are policymakers, and we have access to knowledge, experience, people, information that a lot of other people don't. So if we gave everybody an assistant, they would bring them actually closer. They would be more competitive in the marketplace. They would have access to more things that might make their life better.
That's right. Look, my parents are above 80 years old, right? They enjoyed the whole internet. They could access. They enjoyed the iPhone. They enjoyed for them the Wi-Fi. Now, For them, if you have a co-pilot which will wakes up and tell them when to pay taxes, 401k, when they have to get the social security benefits, Medicare. I mean, we should be thinking how to help senior citizens throughout the life, right? Instead of saying that banning it, use the ChatGPT to help all forms of all citizens, right? I mean, I totally think we should think about the more positive use cases than banning, right? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I don't believe in that, but that's me.
Yeah, I think there's, well, so tell me, when you asked me this question earlier, and we can go through that as well, but I'm going to ask
Sure.
a question back to you. How has ChatGPT or generative AI changed your personal life? Not your business life, but your personal life.
No, it's definitely. Look, I have two kids. My kids are in both middle school and and the high school. For them, ChatGPT totally changed, right? Whether you're writing the essays to how you're doing your debate topics, they're going there to explore. I mean, that's our whole day in our house. We talk about ChatGPT, how they're using it. You don't ban it. There are schools are banning them. I mean, this is like it's we should not. I shouldn't compare this to maybe like I don't know what's the closest ban. Maybe like think of banning it for iPhones or banning internet. Like you should have use my kids are using it to even get the source code out of it, right?
Of
They're actually
course.
writing and say, hey, give me an example of the code. They're getting Python code, Java code. I mean, our life personally has changed a lot in the last 4 months, right? At my home, it changed it. Forget about my work. I mean, at home, chat. So if it's I am one person, I think ChatGPT is impacting people's human day-to-day lives. So I think it's going to have such a big impact. Each of us have to see how we can use it better. And what
Absolutely. Well, in fact, like I just think about it. Just yesterday, my daughter was asking me to validate something for her, and it was essentially how to write a factorial equation for a C++ program. And the way I like had normally written a factorial equation used for mathematics won't work in C++. You actually need to restructure it a bit. And so I went to ChatGPT. I looked, and I'm like, oh yeah, what you just did is correct. Like, so that was really helpful to me because could I have helped her out, gone to Stack Overflow, and tried to figure this out? Sure, but I was able to do it in a few seconds. And I would say that the biggest thing for me, and I think this builds on the education aspect, is it has completely changed the way I do search. And it's not even ChatGPT. I'm mostly using Perplexity AI and now the new Bing because they actually have sources, plus they have a real-time connection to the internet. What I think a lot of people don't understand about conversational AI is when it's giving you an answer, it's giving you like what it thinks is the main topic, plus it's adding a little bit more color, a little more depth, and it might like a secondary topic, a tertiary topic. Okay. So when I go with Google has a couple of choices when it tries to determine what my intent is behind the search. It can decide to say, I think this one element is, here's your topic, and I think this one element is the most important. So I'm going to give you 10 blue links that optimize for what I think is the most important element. Or it can say, for this topic, I think these 3 elements are important. So I can give you the link that gives you the best average or 10 links across those 3 elements, right? Now, once that happens, like I don't know what Google's thinking. I don't know why it gave me these things, but then I just have to start clicking through and see if I can find what I want. And then I'm like Inspector Clouseau. I'm an investigator trying to solve a crime. And it's just like more time. And like a lot of times you don't have context. Did I waste time here? There's 2 things that are going on that a lot of people don't recognize. So the first is when a conversational search engine like Bing or Perplexity gives me 3 answers, or Bard now. Bard will do this a little bit. Really good with lists, maybe not as good with some other things, but really good with some of these use cases. That's secondary or tertiary item. I might not have known that would have even was important. So then it allows me, and this is where education comes in, because I do this, like this new idea comes up, not what I'm looking for, what I think I need to know. This other thing might be the most important thing. Never would have shown up in a search, but there's a little link there. I can go and say, oh, geez, I've been thinking about this all wrong. This is actually more important to me, or it rounds out my thinking about it. And then because it's conversational and it maintains context, I can ask for refinement. I don't have to just go to the link. I can say, well, what do you mean by that, right? That tertiary item. How does that relate to this other thing that I didn't even include in my search, right? And it becomes, I'm a researcher. It becomes basically a learning extravaganza, because before I had to like hunt and peck and I knew I was missing things. And now a lot of these things I was missing are automatically surfaced for me. And not only
But
makes me
I don't think
smarter.
No, I think you nailed it really well, very well described. It's the nature of how it describes between search versus it's a conversation driven. It maintains a context. It takes your first, second, third, fourth, and packages and gives you information. It dialogues with you in a way, makes my information easy. I don't have to be Inspector Clouseau, right? So I think all those things are even. I'll add one more extra thing on top of what you said. It also gives you probabilistic answers. It's a more humans. Because when I ask you a question today versus tomorrow, you're human. Your answers will change because life around you is changing.
Of course.
Right? You're not going to be a conscious, so that it eliminates that robotic experience. It's not a rule-based engine. So
Well, people think hallucinations are like new, like false information to a question. Like people have been lying to you purposely for forever. People have been providing you with false information inadvertently forever. The internet, I guess, are we saying that the internet, everything's correct on the internet? Are we saying that every time a Google search result comes back with something, it's correct? Are we saying every time something is printed in the New York Times, it's correct? I mean, we know all these things are false, but we try to apply a new standard to this new tool, and then all of a sudden it looks bad. But when you compare it to other things, it's actually the same.
No, I'll give you another example that I spend in my industry, because I'm an enterprise, I'm not in the consumer. I tell the bar for AI, generative AI and chatting should be same as the bar you give to a human that you hire. You don't hire a human and say in 2-3 months you show the value, otherwise I'm going to lay you off. Right? You give him a value, you hire him, he or she is going to make mistakes, you train them, you coach them, you mentor them, and you see he will work for your same thing. So I've seen a lot of executives, C-level people, the CIOs and above, CFOs, they'll say, I bought this product for 3 months, show me the value in a proof of concept. I mean, why the test? I don't get it. Do you think you do the same thing to an employee? You put him in a probation. All employees go on probation for first 3 months and then you fire them. I mean, we tend to treat AI in such a harsh way than giving it a chance to make it work. If there's a will, there's a way. If you want it to fail, you can always make it fail.
Well, the other thing is too, my strong belief is that people are smart. Consumers are smart. Users are smart, whether they're business users or consumers. And they very quickly understand how to use things, what to use, what value it is, because they're always assessing, is this worth my time or things like that. I don't know of anybody who's using ChatGPT that believes that there's no errors in it. And I think the same would be true of Google search or an internet blog or something like that. I think we should give people more credit. And what they're doing is when they see ChatGPT, they're saying, hey, you know what? This might not be as good as search, right? But you know, it allows me to do things I couldn't do before, or it allows me to do them faster. And then if I have to do a little bit of additional research on the back end to say, is this true or something like that, or I need to do a little bit more research to make sure I really understand the concept and I'm not just regurgitating what ChatGPT gave back to me. Okay, but people are really smart and they figure out what's useful to them.
Right. And also, absolutely. And by the way, I don't know if we talk and maybe you can separate podcast, we can do it. See, even if it makes a mistake, there's a whole new technologies out there called unsupervised NLP and AI. There is also reinforcement learning.
Yes.
There is also collective learning, transfer learning. It's going to give you the answers. If it fails, use it to improve its results. It's a process. It's a journey. A human and employee make a mistake, you coach them. So this whole idea of it's okay if it makes a mistake, how fast can you keep improving it? And that's the whole journey that I talk about. Look, there are people who believe in it. There are people who don't. They want the answers, 100% answer on day one. Unless you're a god. I mean, I question if the god can answer 100% sometimes.
Well, don't use it then. Use something else. Let other people use what's useful to them. I'd say that, okay, so let's start to bring this to a close. I just wanted to hit on 2 more things. So first of all, I want to summarize what we think about this letter and where that's going to go. And then the last thing I want to do is, I know you have some generative AI features that you've talked about, you've mentioned like very briefly here. I just want to talk for like maybe just a couple minutes about what those are so people know what to look for when they follow up out of this. But okay, so the first thing is, what is the downside risk, just like sum it up for us, Muddu, of government regulators, somebody just saying, yep, we should just adopt this Future of Life Institute paused AI?
I think there's a lot of this. The downside is too big for us to fail. If the regulation were to pass, I think that's going to set for years for America to be behind every other country, right? Yeah, that's one major. It also loses jobs. It's also going to lose the technical advantage, right? It's like once you pause, recovery is never easy. You just lost the momentum, right?
So true.
It's not like it. So the downside is so high. This is one more thing. It's not. We have never done it like that in the industry. It never happened in whether industrial revolution to even iPhone revolution to cloud. So I don't think this is an area where we want to do that. If there's a society, health, whatever the other risks are there, let's put a proper regulation. Both can go hand in hand, but we should not pause.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and I would think about this too. It's the irony here, although it's always true. Like, be wary of success, because then your problems really start. Everyone's been so disappointed at how slowly AI has progressed, and it's not that useful. It's only like this little novelty over in the side. All of a sudden, it gets really useful, and everyone wants to stop it. Oh, wait a second, we weren't expecting success, or at least oftentimes, if you look at the people who signed that letter, we weren't expecting someone else to introduce the success that I have worked my entire career and not have been able to get, and have not been able to get close to.
Right. And also, other thing is, I also want to give, because I'm in the field, I'm doing it. Things are, I mean, there's always a hype curve, right? There's always going to be there. We are going through a hype curve. It's going to come back to normal, right?
Yes.
It's going to take time. So I don't expect things to overnight improve. Even on ChatGPT, by the time it improves on generative AI, it'll take. As I said, we are in the first year of the 20-year journey. So,
Okay. Well, I'll say here, there's a lot of famous people who signed the letter, and whether you wanted Steve Wozniak, Elon Musk, Yoshua Bengio, right? But Yoshua Bengio's two Turing Award winners, co-winners, Jan LeCun and Jeffrey Hinton, did not sign the letter. Muddu Sudhakar has not signed the letter. Like, people who are in the industry and know what's going on. In fact, even if you trot out 5,000 or 50,000 people, there are actually more people who didn't sign the letter than signed it. And so I think that it's in some ways it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but oftentimes these things develop some momentum and they become the pretext for someone else who has an interest to take action because they have something that they want to do. And so that's really ultimately that's my concern, in that I see this as actually a force for good. I see the benefit that people are getting right now. I understand that there are potentially risks, but the risks haven't manifested yet. The risks have actually been fairly low, and we should identify what the risks are. We can try to proactively try to mitigate them, but don't stop all the good things from happening at the same time.
Bret, I can't say any more better than what you summarized.
Okay, perfect.
Everybody should watch your podcast show. It should be in Amazon Prime.
There you go. We can work on that. So just as we close, why don't you tell people how you have implemented generative AI in the Aisera platform?
Yeah, multiple ways. Look, we've been working with Microsoft on GPT-3, 3.5 for last 18 months, 2 years. They're our good partner. So we are implementing ChatGPT both as a way to use it, and we build our own LLMs on top of generative AI, right? And use the transformative models to offer it. So as I said, I've been doing the AI chatbot since when Aisera started in 2017.
Right.
Before that, we tried to do that service. Now I'm only focused on enterprise business, customer service, IT support, IT operations, right? I'm again in one domain. Even in that domain, there's so much wood to cut and keep improving it to my customers. So there's a long way to road in terms of how to automate, both in terms of answering the question for knowledge articles, summarization, and creating action workflows, right?
Mm-hmm.
People want me to take actions, not just answer your questions, right? And that in that case, I need to have integrations of hundreds and thousands of systems. I need to talk to your Active Directory, your Microsoft Office, Google Suite, SAP, Oracle. So that's what we do. So these things are not easy.
And tell me what's the generative part of this, though? So you already had the integrations. So how are you?
Yeah, we do. Look, there's obviously we built on traditional generative AI algorithms and transformer models. But what ChatGPT has done is we've integrated with them so that any answer we can always use ChatGPT. We can use their LLMs to make our data, because when I come to you, I can use their algorithms with us and your data to give it a localized, personalized LLMs. There's a lot we are doing with them, right? We can also use them to summarize it, taking your customer support data and create a summarized document. See, if I'm a knowledge worker, nobody wants to sit and write a documentation. You know how hard it is if you're a programmer. So if I can use ChatGPT to do summarization, it's one more good thing. So I'm looking at these small items that add up to a big thing that will help you automate your tasks, right?
Yeah, and I think of that last point you talked about, like writing documentation. A lot of documentation doesn't get written because people don't have time, or they don't want to do it, or they don't have the skills to do it. And what we might see with the LLMs is more coverage, which is a very important thing from a chatbot standpoint, right? Or an assistant standpoint. If we cover more things, or we cover them more comprehensively, we can solve more problems for the user Every one of us has been to one of those pages where you do a search, it sends you to this thing, it says, this is where your answer is going to get in my documentation. You look at it and it has this little thing at the bottom. Was this helpful? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And I feel like I hit thumbs down more than I hit thumbs up.
That's right. I think that's why I said, to me, all these things is going to make the whole society, every user experience better. So to me, it's cost savings, right? The better, it's actually make Earth more greener, right? For all the people, right? It's going to improve the productivity of the users. It's going to improve the cost savings, right? It improves the experience. So I think the benefits of the whole thing is so large. We should try to do it and try to put, as I said, if there are risks by industry, by citizens, let's take all the right steps to protect it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. That was really well said. That's a good way to conclude. Muddu Sudhakar from Aisera. We'll put in the show notes a link so that everyone can see what they're doing, both in generative AI and more broadly in automation. Thanks so much for joining me. I think we should do this again when one of these other controversial topics comes up.
Anytime, Bret. You bring the best fit in us. So thank you for having me here.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Synthedia.
Synthedia.substack.com. Synthetic media, virtual humans, voice clones, deepfakes, AI image and text generation, news and more.